Mute my phone.
What is up, everybody?
Hey, good evening. I hear the dogs.
All right. We got one more minute. We're at 7 o'clock.
Hope y'all had dinner.
What's up, y'all?
What's going
Mr.
on?
Hernandez, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good.
Doing good.
I'm in my comfy clothes tonight.
Gonna have to get you a Georgia hat. What's going on?
Considering I am invested in Athens one way or the other, I think I need I do have one, the one that you and I got like 50 years ago.
There you go. All right, well, everybody's joining in. So tonight we're going to be talking about buying and holding. It's my favorite topic. I love buy and hold. So accumulating and owning rental properties. So we're going to dive into all kinds of stuff with that. But before we do, let's introduce ourselves. So I'll let my wife, Joanne, start.
Okay, so I'm Joanne Curtin. I'm the lead on the team with really helping sellers retail their properties for the most money possible. So I'm looking for listings. This is kind of the big why of why we do this, because we're looking for some great properties that we can sell for our clients and obviously connect our buyers with. So I run the listings on our team, and I've partnered with Tom. This is now our I can't believe, but it is our 20th year in the business this year for selling real estate. And we've gotten into some commercial and of course investing along the way, but our big why has always been building wealth through real estate. So Tom's really our investing arm. And
yeah, so I'm Tom Curtin. I put, if you guys want to, feel free to put your info in the chat. So I put Joanne and I's email contact there. So this is really a group to make connections. That's what it's all about. We want to help each other through this real estate journey and building wealth through real estate. So I primarily focus on, we do have a property management company. We manage our properties, the buy and holds that we do, and I do help investor clients analyze deals. So even if it's not one that we would be involved in, I'm happy to crunch numbers and help you through that. We help our clients as well. If it's in our zone, we'll do property management, geographic zone that is. And yeah, that's it. So if anybody else wants to be brave and take yourself off mute and introduce yourself, feel free to do it. Or you can put it in the chat. So. Or I'll just call you out. So kidding, I won't. All right. So yeah, so y'all network together for sure, and that's what this group, like I said, is all about. So we've got lenders in here, we've got other investors, people who are just getting started, people who have done it before. We can all learn from each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if there is something specific you're looking for, this is the time to do it. Put it in the chat or just raise your hand for anything that you're looking for. So, okay,
all right,
here's your disclaimer slide, Tom.
Our disclaimer is seek your own advice. Vet out your own deals through this group, and vet out anybody that you would meet through this group. We don't necessarily endorse it directly, or we're not lawyers. I guess I'll put it that way.
We know some, but we're not any.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what is buy and hold, Tom?
Buy and hold is, to me, it's really the way to create true wealth through real estate. So when you buy a property and if you flip a property, which we've talked about before, when you flip a property, you're really that's a job, right? You have to keep doing it in order to create income. When you buy and hold, you're creating income. You're doing work up front, but then that income is going to continue. And that's really the true wealth, because you can leverage that over time. Not to mention, which we're going to talk about, the other advantages as far as tax advantages of holding, being able to depreciate the property, to have that write-off. So even when you're making money through leasing a property, it might come out on your taxes that you're losing money. Perfectly legal. The government wants you to be a landlord, and they want to encourage that. That's why it's in the tax code. So anyway, well, I'm getting too far down the road. But buy and hold is basically where you're buying the property with the intent to hold it, lease it out, hopefully make some cash flow, and also enjoy some appreciation and also depreciation on your taxes.
So basically not buying it to sell within 3-6 years. You're literally buying it to pay it off over time.
Well, maybe.
Well,
so it's a long period of time, right? So we're not, what we're saying here by definition, a flip or a rehab, you're typically only holding it for less than 12 months. So okay. So considerations are a little different with a fix and flip. Again, where you're trying to get in and out quickly and make some margin on the cost to acquire and fix it up and get it sold. Some of the issues are the same. I will say that whenever we have done a fix and flip, kind of that backstop, or that plan B that we have is, I want to be able to feel like if the flip didn't work, then I can turn around and lease it and be okay, right? So I kind of look at that as a safety net, right?
Yeah.
So things to consider for buy and hold: how much free cash do you have to market for, buy, renovate, and hold the property? Obviously, buying and holding, you are putting cash in, and it's a long-term thing, right? So you have to be able to have the money to hold the property and not have to pull it out because you need the money for something else, right? That money's going to stay in the property. I mean, there are ways you can refi and pull money out down the road, but your money's going to be tied up in that property. You've got to be able to manage the carrying costs, same as you would with a flip. You're going to have carrying costs, and you're going to have vacancy and repairs. Those are all considerations. It really is, if you look at a property as an individual, or an individual property as a business, just like in any business, you're going to have reserves, right? A 3 to 4 month reserve for that business. So each property, you should have built up some reserves because you're going to have things that pop up. And that's the properties that I manage where the landlords don't have reserves. it's extremely stressful because every repair is an issue, and they're kind of wanting to do it the cheapest way because they can't really afford to do it right. And, it just kind of like perpetuates, like they just, instead of just being able to account for it in their finances, something breaks, let's get it fixed. Let's put a good new air conditioner in so we don't keep getting these calls or whatever it may be, or let's replace the roof instead of just patch it up. That should all just be factored into your reserves. And then when it goes vacant, it shouldn't be like super stressful, right? Like you've built that into your numbers.
I remember selling, we were selling actually quite a few properties for someone that did a lot of buy and holds, and he had a lot of properties, and then it eventually 1031'd them into each other, and then just, I don't think has really any more left. But one of the big kind of trademarks he had was the Train HVAC. Like, I mean, I was always wowed by the Train HVAC that he'd had out there. I mean, that is like, and he said, I do it because it makes everyone do what just you're doing. They're like, wow, this is a great property. So, I mean, he knew to not, be stingy in those important areas.
So with buy and hold, you have to decide what's your strategy, right? Like what's your long-term strategy. So there's, some properties are going to produce a higher income, right? But they maybe won't have as high of appreciation. So we're going to talk about that, what that looks like. So if your goal is just, for us, we've always looked for a balance. Like I don't want to buy a property and be losing money on the monthly, but I'm also balancing where I feel like it's going to appreciate. So
in a growth area.
Yeah. Tolerance for risk. I mean, that's with any real estate investing. You can make higher, potentially, you can make higher cash flow in some areas that maybe are a little more risky. You just have to know what your tolerance for risk is with that. And then your tolerance for dealing with rehabs, contractors, tenants, buyers, and agents. That's all part of buy and hold. You are going to get phone calls, people. One of the common comments I get is, oh, how do you deal with, those phone calls? And for me, it's never been, I mean, you have your challenging tenants sometimes, but that's just life, right? You have challenging people. But for the most part, the phone calls, again, they shouldn't totally stress you out. It's just part of it. And, I've never gotten a phone call at 2:00 in the morning with a broken toilet. Like literally that's never happened to me. So that I think is what people build up in their mind, but you do have to have some tolerance for, you're just kind of, do you want to deal with it, or do you want to have a property manager deal with it, basically?
And then you have that tenant who will send you their check in the little trifold brochure that, we still receive today, with pre-printed with a picture of the house. And, there are tenants out there like that. And yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So part of what you're doing here is you're basically building a profile of what you want to own with your buy and hold. So, geographically, where do you want to own properties? For us, we started to make that area a little bit tighter because we are self-managing, and I wanted it to basically be easy for me to get to the property if I needed to. How long, like what's your time horizon? Some people like to only hold them for 3 to 5 years and then move the money to the next one, or, do you want to hold on to it and just pay it down, and then how will you manage your first few properties? And then what if you get, 10 plus, right? So deciding, my personal advice, if you were to ask me, I think if you are just having your first property, I would use a professional property manager, because you can learn a lot from them. Use it as a learning experience. How are they screening the tenants? What are they looking for? How are they dealing with the tenant issues that might arise? And then, you know, if you decide you want to self-manage, you've got something to base it on. I think people that come out of the gate and self-manage without having any experience, you're putting yourself at risk to get taken advantage of, unfortunately, or, you know, potentially do something that's not legal. You know, there's issues with that, or there's tenants that are professional tenants, right, that know how to work the system, and if they see that you don't have experience, they might take advantage of that. So, okay, what rate of return do you get from other investments? So we're going to talk about, you know, calculating your cash on cash return and what your return is and how that might compare to, you know, your question should always be, well, can I put this money elsewhere and get a better return? And then what rate of appreciation do you expect? So again, some people like to buy for appreciation or just buy for cash flow, or some like us, some combination of in between. You could kind of factor in like where you might expect to see more appreciation. Yeah.
And let me jump in and say, if Tom and I don't just want this to be a presentation, right? Because we're here to learn from you too. So we do want you to.
So what Joanne's saying is I'm talking too much.
No.
Does anybody have any questions?
But I mean, you know, like my son says, I'm the one that just waits for someone else to ask the question that I really want the answer to. Mm-hmm. Don't be that person. Just, you know, ask a question. This is a conversation. It's not, you know, it's all confidential, and we just really want to be a resource while we've got our time together. So, and we'll learn from you too. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So renovating, buy and hold. So the renovating piece.
So we prefer to basically buy like lower middle or just middle of the market properties in neighborhoods. So very low end, your very low end properties, again, these numbers sometimes look extremely attractive from a cash flow standpoint. However, you're attracting, some of the tenants might require more maintenance, you're going to have more turnover, you're just going to have more issues that you might not have kind of in that middle market property. So
where maybe the whole neighborhood is a rental neighborhood. So can we define like what high and low end is? Because not everybody it is from just Georgia here or this Atlanta metro area. But yeah. I mean, our price points have really changed since COVID. But
so for example, if and it's probably higher than this now, but if our median home price in our area is $400,000, then we would be looking for, and these prices don't really exist anymore, but we would be looking for something in the $275 to $350 price point, right? If your median home price was $400, so you're just below lower middle market.
And we're in the north of Atlanta, Roswell, Alpharetta, Woodstock, East Cobb zone. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking those prices, that's the area that we're talking about.
Yeah, and then high-end properties, it's just really almost impossible to find to make the numbers work. So, you know, if you buy a house for $1 million, you know, maybe it rents for $8,000, maybe not even $7,000, $8,000 a month, maybe. You can go buy a $2 million house and it's maybe going to rent for $11,000 or $12,000. So you're not getting, mm-hmm. you know, the higher you go, the rent doesn't keep up, right? So we just generally stay away from the higher end properties. The other part of the high end properties is those people, if they can afford to pay that much in rent, in general, that means it's going to be a very short-term thing for them. So maybe they're relocating here because they couldn't find a house and they're just moving into this house. Well, they're well qualified. They're not going to stay in that rental long term. Whereas we have found in that lower middle market, you know, maybe they're just not able to buy, and so they're comfortable staying, and that's a great strategy if you're able to keep. We're going to talk a little bit more about this down the road, but turnover is what costs more than anything, right? So if you can find a property that doesn't turn over a lot, which again is that kind of lower midpoint, you'll make more money long term. Whereas on the low end, you get more turnover, and on the very high end, you're going to have turnover for two different reasons. But I like the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fix what's broken. These are not gut job renovations, kitchens and baths. So this is, when you buy a property and it needs to be fixed up. We have found just, painting the cabinets. If the cabinets are old, you can reuse appliances. So, if you're doing a rehab, or you're like personally redoing your kitchen and you need a refrigerator somewhere, then you move that refrigerator over. But
we just did that this weekend. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah. So carpet and
the tenant got a gorgeous refrigerator.
Yeah.
Nice.
So carpet generally in the bedrooms, and then we like LVT in most of the main rooms because then you're just not going to have to replace that. It depends on the properties that we have gotten in our area lately. Laminate countertops wouldn't be ideal, but it just depends on you're kind of looking at what the market is. So you don't have to go crazy and put a beautiful marble kitchen top in with all new stainless steel appliances. Just keeping it neutral, white tile in the bathrooms.
It's the maintenance that the tenants are really looking at versus the aesthetics. I mean, it could be a mid-mod house with everything's original, but if it's in great condition and looks shiny, I mean, that's kind of cool. So,
well, I mean, the example would be like you could really do, if you were going to flip a property, let's just say you were going to spend $20,000 more than you would to just get it to rental ready. And if you did that and then turned around and rented that $20,000, maybe you can get an extra $50 in rent in a month. So you do the math on that. How long would it take? I spend an extra 20 to make it just beautiful, but I'm only getting $50 more in rent. It's going to take you a long time to make up for that $20,000. You may as well just wait and do the renovation right before you're going to sell it, versus right at the beginning when you're going to start renting it out. So,
does anybody have any? I'm curious if anybody has a rental house right now that y'all have rental property. Does anybody on this have something that they do rent out? Because stories can be shared for days on that slide alone. Okay. All right. Property management. Oh.
No, I was just saying we do, but it looks like in the chat box, there's a few other people as well.
Okay.
Cool. So property management. So third party property managers generally cost between 8 to 10% of the gross rents, and then usually with turnover, it's a half month to 1 month rent, 1 month's rent to find and secure that new tenant. They can handle, so property manager will handle, marketing the home, doing the credit background checks, collecting the rent, all the repair calls, and then evictions as necessary. And then they're also, obviously that buffer between you and the tenant. So if there are issues, that property manager is there to manage the tenant, right? So a good property manager will send a monthly report or have software that allows you to access that, so you can see the money in and money out. We think it's such a good idea to keep rents at or just below. We really like just below market rents to encourage the renewals and less vacancy.
I used to not be into that frame of mind, but Tom, I mean, literally, I would be like, gosh, I'd hear about another property, or maybe a neighbor was asking this, and then if you do the math and you're like, okay, so let's say we try to hike this up and get more rent, you're now 1 month of vacancy, I mean, you might as well have lowered the rent and never had one bit of vacancy. So it just makes so much sense to go low and not have the vacancy.
Yeah.
But I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. So I don't think there's anything wrong with, raising the rents a little bit, and letting your tenant, the way we would handle it is if we are going to raise the rent, we'll explain why. We'll also share with them what the current market rents are so they can see, wow, I am getting a below market rent. And it, if you raise it a very small amount, they're not going to move over that. But again, if you do the math,
But when you enter the market, you just want to get it rented. You don't want to go too high, and that's when people really can mess up. They go too high, and then it's vacant, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, come on."
Well, or even if you get somebody at that high rent initially, then they're just more likely to find something else and leave, right? So you want to kind of be there from the start, slightly below market rent, or right at it, not above.
Yeah, they'll say, "Hey, I'm a 2-month renter. Let me get a discount or a 2-year renter. Let me get a discount, and we'll sign a 2-year lease," and then they're out too early, and you just did that for nothing.
Yeah. Always do credit and background checks. I made this mistake early on, so you'll hear all the stories in the world, and tugs at your heartstrings, whatever. I'm just cold-hearted. I'm like, I don't care. You gotta have the credit, and you gotta have the money, and don't accept partial payments. It's just a slippery slope. It hasn't never ended well for me, and for most other people that you talk to, it's rare that it ends well. So.
And we learned a lot of that from a property manager that we hired years ago.
Yeah.
We were watching them handle all of those situations, like, whoa,
So loan considerations, we've got Nick Smith is on with us. So he might want to chime in on this, but most investment loans require 20 or 25% of 20 or 25% of the purchase price or the appraised value. So I think you can do 20. We found the rate gets a little better with 25%.
So what's going on right now, Nick, since we're talking your lingo?
Yep, I was just getting ready to hop on. So actually right now, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Sorry.
All right.
We blew a fuse over here.
Since Fannie and Freddie have started to crack down on actually giving loans for both investment properties or second homes, if you're only putting the bare minimum 20% down, at least that's what we can offer on a loan is 80% loan to value. There's actually no par rate. And so to get into the mid to high 3s or 4s, you're looking anywhere from $2,500 to $7,000 to buy the interest rate or pay points. And then if you're putting down 25% or better, we're looking at interest rates of around 4.5% right now as of Monday.
So how does that affect with the new rules there, the 10 property rule with conforming loans?
Haven't ran into it yet. Most of my clients don't have more than 10 properties at one time. And if they do, they're usually selling 1 or 2 to buy something a little bit more expensive for the future.
Yeah. So again, we're not attorneys, but general good rule of thumb with owning a property is to put it in an LLC or a trust, just for asset protection reasons. You usually can't buy in the name of an LLC, at least from a conforming loan standpoint, unless Nick has something different to say about that. But that would put you into a commercial loan, which is definitely doable. It just, again, your rate and your term is going to be different than a conforming loan. So your rate might be a little bit higher, and you'll probably be on more like a 20-year amortization if you have to go with a commercial route. So generally, we would buy it in our name, and then after the fact, move it into an LLC.
And some people just call it literally the property address LLC. you know?
Yeah. But
Nothing.
again, you would want to consult with your attorney because there are
That's true.
potential ramifications of doing that, but that's
Right.
kind of a rule of thumb. 6 months, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, all that required for each rental property is usually what they're going to look for. And then on a refi, is that what you're seeing, Nick? 70% LTV on a refi?
What is LTV?
That's sorry, that's loan to value.
Okay.
So how much equity you have in the home.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 75% is actually the highest we can go.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's same for cash out refis on investment property as well, 75%.
Yep. Yeah, so that's one of the advantages, I think, too, of holding for long term and letting appreciation happen is that you can refinance that property, right? Let's say it's gone up $100,000, you can refinance and pull out $70,000 or whatever, and then you can do whatever you want with that money, right? Nobody's telling you what you can and can't do with it, but you can use it to then purchase another property, right? So these things can start to snowball once you hold a property and let it appreciate over time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that money is not, again, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not taxed in any way on pulling that cash out of the property, that equity.
Mm-hmm.
That is correct.
So
Tom and I are reading Tax-Free Wealth, this book, and it says it's actually the most patriotic thing you can do to make full use of the tax code. And the tax code is created so that people will invest in property and improve it for others to rent and live in. So all of these rules are to our advantage.
yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so this is just a sample to run through some numbers on a buy and hold deal. So this $250,000 townhouse, let's say it needs $10,000 in work to be able to rent it. You're going to rent it for $1,750 a month, and the HOA is $75 a month, right? If the tenant will pay the utilities, which is typical, right? Sometimes on a townhome, something like water, or I guess water is usually, or the yard could potentially be included, but most of the time, tenant's going to pay all the utilities. So you're going to pay $4K a year in taxes and about $1,200 in insurance. That's probably about right. So is this a good rental deal?
Nick can't answer.
Why not? Nick
Well,
can answer.
oh, okay. Well,
Everyone can play.
okay.
Okay. We'll keep going. So assumptions are that we're going to do, 75% loan to value. We're using 5%, so that's obviously a little bit higher than what Nick was quoting there, but just to be conservative, we'll use 5%. $1,000 a year in lost rent, so that's just your turnover period, right? You're going to have a little bit of vacancy where the old tenant's moving out, you're getting it ready, the new tenant's moving in. It usually doesn't happen back to back, so you'll have a little bit of vacancy, lost rent, and $1,000 a year in repairs. It'll probably be higher on a turnover year. That's true that, when you turn over a property, even if the tenant was keeping it really great, you still have, just turnover costs. But I would say that's a good estimate, $1,000 a year, just miscellaneous stuff that happens.
Well, and we had a property where I think you said the electrical box just looked scary, and you're like, I think I'm going to have that completely redone. Thank you.
Yeah.
It just made us, feel better. So that was $900 for the electrical box to get redone.
So depreciation on your taxes, loan payoff, and price appreciation of the property are factors, but don't have an effect on the monthly net income, right? So that is a benefit, obviously depreciation, and you're paying down the loan. the property in theory would be appreciating, but we're really just talking about, you know, is this a deal from a net income standpoint? So you need about $70,000 between the 25% down and the 6 months reserves that you're going to need to show the lender. So we've factored in the monthly cost, $1,000 for the mortgage, $400 a month for the taxes, $100 for the insurance, $75 for the HOA. So we're at $1,575 a month for your basically fixed cost, right?
Mhm.
So that's $18,900 in a year. Multiply that times 12. If you don't use property management, right? So let's assume on property management it's an 8% fee, so that's going to add $126 a month, which would be about $1,500 a year. So your cost with property management would be $20,400. So we said the rent would be $1,750 a month, so that's $21,000 minus your $2,000 in lost rent and repairs. So your actual income would be $19,000, and a net loss of over $1,000 a year if you use property management. Best case, so no turnover, no repairs, and you're self-managing. That would result in a net profit of about $2,000 a year. That's a 2.8% return on your $70,000 that you put in.
Mhm.
And then let's just say you paid cash, right? So there's no loan, there's no interest expense. Your net profit would then be about $14,000 a year, 5.6% return on $250,000. It's not great. It's not great.
I mean, I'm not wowed by that. I'm just hoping I get some good tax breaks because of it.
Yeah.
If anything,
Yeah.
that would be the swing
Yeah.
on that one.
But you also have to be kind of careful with the tax breaks too, because if you write off too much on that home, you then don't show the profit to be able to purchase your next one, unless you just have a bunch of income.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Kind of a catch-22, I
Even
guess.
more of a Debbie Downer. There you go.
Well, but
How
at
do you-
the end of the day, you gain 5% equity in the house.
Yep.
So there's still a benefit if you're trying to hold and not turn and burn.
Well, how would you factor in appreciation in those numbers?
Yeah. So this was just looking at cash flow,
Let's go
right?
back to
So,
is this the deal? Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, because really this number that we just looked at is really you're just looking at your cash on cash return number there, and that doesn't take into account for appreciation. You know, we measure it, and it is obviously a factor. And I think that's where buying in that middle ground where you expect to get some appreciation and you get some cash flow, like this is terrible. I mean, it's not hit it out of the park deal, but I think this is pretty typical of what a buy and hold might look like.
Yeah, because
I personally, I mean, we use townhome just because we want to get the price.
right,
where it is,
that would
but-
be actually not even a townhome where we are, but there was a house that we sold during pandemic because we were at the closing table with math. They closed at 241.5. I actually posted this on our team Slack today just to remind everyone. It closed at 241.5, and it is rented for $18.45 a month. I mean, that's a pretty good deal.
Mhm.
That was 18. Look at the numbers on that. Like they got $18.95. This was in kind of an East Cobb zone. It's just a 3-bedroom, 2.5, but they made an extra little bathroom in the basement. So okay, it's a 3-3, but it's just a small little house, not even a garage.
It's probably worth, at least 10% more now.
Oh yeah. So that was a little bit better numbers. This is
Do you calculate the rent based on square footage? Like, did this house have 1,700 square feet?
No, I
or-
mean, you really don't. It's not based on square footage. I mean, it's really the same as when you sell a house, you're looking at rental comps. So, for us, we're going to look in FMLS and we're going to run comps and we're going to see what else is rented in that neighborhood or in that same elementary school that's a similar home. So it's not necessarily based per square foot pricing. It's just which is the same as we do with selling a house. I mean, you do look at square footage, but we're not like taking that as the number, right?
You'll be completely wrong if you do it that way. So.
Yeah. I was going to point out too, from appreciation standpoint, Cheryl, I think townhomes generally don't appreciate as much, so you can get better cash flow sometimes, and it's less costly from an upkeep standpoint, just because you don't have as much.
Oh yeah, there's a 75 HOA. There you go.
To keep up with, but we've bought townhomes before. I just don't think that if you're looking at appreciation, if that's part of your goal, then I would not necessarily look at townhomes. Condos and townhomes tend to not appreciate as much. And a condo can be attractive from it's super low maintenance and I won't have to worry about anything, but it just, the HOA will eat up your profit a lot of times on the condos. So.
Okay. I can't remember.
Yeah. So the really good thing about buy and hold long game is you're paying down the loan, right? So in over time, the rents build up. So your rents increase, the property increases, and you're just building that equity over time. So, when we bought property, it seems like it really doesn't seem that long ago, but some of the things that we bought and we've owned for 7 or 8 years, and you look at the appreciation and the equity that you built up, it's like, wow, that's, it's just a long game, right? So we love to try to find that, what's the 1% rule or 100 times the monthly rent rate. It's very difficult to find. So that basically what that would mean is if you bought a house in our market for $350,000, you would be expecting the rent to be $3,500. We don't find that. I mean, you're generally not going to get that close to it, but again, you got to factor in the homes that I see that fit that criteria are the ones that tend to not appreciate as much, right? So you can go probably certain area of town, you buy a property for $120,000, you can probably get close to $1,200 for that, but the properties might be worth, $120,000 5 years from now, or it could be worth less, because it's just not in a nice.
If you wait for that 1% rule, you're just going to keep waiting. I mean, you really just want to see, are you going to be positive cash flow? And if the area is an appreciating area, I mean, I made a verbal offer today to offer somebody $330,000 for their property, and we know it could rent for $2,300 a month. That's a super appreciating neighborhood that we know very, very well. And we were going to do that all day long, and yet that was an absolute no. They're going to probably get multiple offers and go way over 400 by the time they end up retailing it.
So it's hard to do, especially in an up market. I mean, when the market had shifted in 2009, you could find those kind of deals for sure. 2010, and then as prices have really gone up, the rents have gone up too, but you're not going to find the 1% in our area. I'm sure there's places you can. So a deal that makes good cash flow as a rental will also probably be a good candidate for a fix and flip. So you do have a backup plan if you needed to get out of it. I will tell you that is, I think, one of the more difficult things, because people do see, oh my gosh, I could just sell it now. I can make $60,000, and I just want to take the $60,000 and run. I don't want to deal with the rental and the quote headaches and all that. But when you talk to investors that have been doing it for a long time, and we talk to investors across the country through the
Grid Network.
through the Grid Network, and through Keller Williams and just people we know. And I would say the biggest regret, well, the two biggest regrets that people have are selling, like, they just wish they would have held on to more of what they sold and not starting sooner, right? Those are the two biggest ones that we hear. Like, I wish I would have started sooner. I wish I wouldn't have sold. I wish I would have held on to more of what I sold. So I just think, the buy and hold, it's that delayed gratification, right? That a lot of people struggle with, but it's definitely a way to accumulate wealth. So,
Tom likes to keep a bunch of our past papers that we used to have in our real estate business, and he just recycles them because he's so he's into recycling. And his big fun thing is like to use it as kindling in the fire, right? When it's cold and we're building a fire, and the back is always all these listings that we used to have, and we should have bought every one, and then we'll throw them in the fire. Should have bought that one. Should have bought that one. I mean, it is crazy the kind of prices. And even y'all, just looking back to 2017, had we bought every property that we listed, we would, oh my gosh, I mean, we would be so far ahead. But yeah, we were selling them instead of buying them. Who knew that we were going to go into a reset? But that's what we did.
Yeah.
So, and that was just, there's one house in the neighborhood we're marketing. Our property is going to hit the market just under $1 million. Well, one house just went under contract this morning at 1.1. It was purchased in 2018 for $550. It is pending at 1.1. That's double the money in 3 years. I mean, that's wild.
So I have a note here about multi-unit apartment buildings. We're not going to get into that. It's a different topic for a different night.
But I want to plug for what we're looking for. So remember the 1% rule? We actually stood in front of a class and taught that. And there was a gentleman on the front row, and he was like, I'd like to differ on the 1%. And he was in the apartment building business. And that rule is totally of a yes, if not double, in the apartment building. So if you know of anyone that's ready tax purpose wise to get rid of their apartment because now they've depreciated it all the way down, it's time to sell, let us know, because we have purchasers for apartments. Okay, multi-unit.
So does anybody have questions
or comments about what you're doing or about to do, or a property you're evaluating or have a question about? I mean, I have at least 2 properties daily that I'm like, oh my gosh.
Can you talk a little bit about short-term rentals, like the
What's that?
Airbnb type rentals?
So we don't personally have any Airbnb rentals, but we've helped a client purchase one in Roswell that, I mean, they're like, this is the best thing ever. So
Nick,
you'd have to have the rule. The rules would have to be in your favor, but Nick, you can.
Yeah, I know Nick's got one. I think what you would have to factor into that is the cost of furnishing the property. Of course, it's going to have more wear and tear because you're turning it over way more frequently. I think you can make a lot of money, but the concern that Joanne was talking about is that it is, if you're inside of any kind of a neighborhood, the neighborhood can change the rules and stop those short-term rentals, or a city could change the rules, and either stop them, or they could levy some kind of a tax that now the numbers don't work as well. So that would be my biggest concern.
So what are
with them?
Yep. So what do we not know, Nick, that we need to be knowing?
Well, I think just like any investment, you should probably have a backup plan. When we started our Airbnb, ultimately we were going to do it for a year and see how it worked. And if it didn't work out well, then we'd lease it and go long term. Some things that you do have to look out for, kind of like you guys said, you have to watch out for city ordinance and what they allow, what they don't allow, what extra taxes you have to pay, because you now have to pay the hotel tax. You're obviously having to pay for Airbnb and anybody that hosts your property, cleanup of the property, maintenance, etc. And then to furnish the property, kind of like I said in the chat earlier, if it's what we've noticed is basically a 3-bed, 2-bath home costs about $10,000 to furnish. So you have to take those factors into mind. But ultimately with us, and we've only been doing it a little while now, but with everybody staying home for 2019, 2020 and 2021 has been a blessing, at least for us. So we're going to continue to do it until we see a change in the market, and then we'll change from there. But it's our main goal with all of our houses to hold on to them until they are paid off, and then we'll use those for retirement.
So are you getting 1% rule on Airbnb?
It's pretty close, but not that good.
Okay. That is good. That's good. Anybody else?
And I think too with the Airbnb, it's, unless it's literally in your backyard, you're going to have management, right? You're going to have a relationship with a cleaner and, somebody that's going in there and turning it over for you. So I don't know, y'all have somebody that handles all that for you, Nick?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different cleaners that we use, and they're amazing. Not only do they clean the place, but they restock all of our coffees and wines and goodies and that sort of thing. And then we've also lucked out that ours is in Savannah. We have some friends that own a bar down there, and luckily they live a block away, so they can check on the house for us and stuff like that when we're not around. And yeah, I mean, like I said, it's worked out really well, but we've also ran into some crazy things. We ended up having to have a large tree removed, and being on an island, there's only one person that can do that. So you have to take into account that you're going to pay some good money to fix things when you're in a on an island or in a tourist type place.
Yeah.
Well, you had us there when you said wine, so we want to know about your place. Put it in the chat. Put that in the chat.
I'll put it in there in just a second.
Cool. Thank you. I'm reading some of these. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Well, does anybody have anything they want to share as far as what you might be looking for right now?
Yeah, looking for or wins that we can learn from you with. I want to hear some wins.
Thank you for the session. My name is Tirish. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. I just came back from run, so I haven't had. So
hi, Tirish. Good to see you.
Hi, hello everyone. Yeah. So we are buying our first house. It's in Dunwoody. Yeah, and we lived in the apartment for 10 years. We paid off this unit for the owner. So we thought of my stay there for buy a house in 2 years. Even though we can buy a bigger house, but we want to start a smaller home, so which is very comfortable, and stay there for 2 years. And we are learning how if we need to rent, how it's going to work. And I'm also have money to buy another property, but I don't know whether this is my first experience. I want to make sure I can learn a few things before I jump into.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so smart with buying your first property with the intent that that can then become your first investment property, right? We've helped people do that, and we didn't personally do it, wish we would have, but I think that's a great way to get into it, because you're getting that loan as a personal loan, right? And then you're able to keep that loan as a personal loan and just move to another property and keep that as a rental. So super smart.
Yeah, and you guys being local, I think it will be very helpful. I know there's a lot of information in the internet, but we don't know where they are, and they talk about different markets and
right.
You need perspective. Yeah, and Tom touched on what you were saying about it's your personal residence. The best investment is one that you personally would live in. Like, if you're not going to live in it, who else would? Like, and you're typically trailing the growth zone. If you live there, somebody else lives. You know, you're in the growth zone already. So that's a key. You know, would you personally live in it? Because one day, just like my 1031 guy that kept buying, he ended up having to live in the big one at the end because he was going to get big, you know, capital gains tax. So make sure you, oh gosh, here's a crazy story. So there was a property, this was years ago. The family did not live in Walton High. They lived in the Wheeler district. Okay, y'all know Walton and Wheeler, it's like this. Well, they had a cheerleading sign in the window and it was Walton High Cheerleader. And one of the neighbors buyers caught wind that was for sale, this property or something. Anyway, got wind of it, and they unfortunately were told within 48 hours they had to vacate the home. They were now like breaking the law. So they had to quickly move into a rental house that was super bad shape, and it was nothing that they would ever personally live in Walton. They had to kick out the tenant and just get their family in this this awful rental that unfortunately became their home.
So Kanani asked a question about wondering if there's better timing in the market for purchasing a rental. Is now a good time? That's a great question. I think there's always opportunities. Right now, there's less opportunities if the property is, you know, in MLS and you're competing and bidding on the property against other investors, other home buyers. That is probably not going to be a great deal if you were to get that property. So I think the opportunities then are fewer, but I don't think there are not opportunities. I think they, you know, just some stuff might come to you word of mouth, or the opportunity, Kanani, you know, this one, the opportunity can come through, you know, somebody who's looking for a property to lease, and then you kind of put that together with matchmaker on.
Yeah, find the leaser, then go.
We have a great tenant, let's go find them a property. That can be a deal. I mean, you still don't want to pay like way too much or buy a bad property, but it certainly helps coming in right out of the gate when you've already got somebody lined up. That offsets that whole initial vacancy and potentially decreases the amount of repairs that you might have to do right out of the gate. So there's opportunities like that. Or, well, you know, there are other investors that they, you know, what happens sometimes is they find an opportunity that they want to go buy and they want to use, you know, 1031 exchange money, and they just don't want to fool with, you know, selling the property on the market or disturbing the tenant, and they'll just sell it to another investor at a pretty decent price, right? And you're just buying their investment because it's convenient and they can line up to closing with their next investment. So there's opportunities like that. I mean, I think, again, it's just kind of putting the word out there that you're looking for an investment, letting people know that you're an investor, and then just screening the deals and not rushing into something. I mean, I think there's opportunity, but I guess to your point, the timing of the market is high. I wouldn't get in a bidding war for a property right now. So, and you know, I mean, I don't think it's gonna. You know, some people are saying, well, I'm just going to wait till all the foreclosures come, or, you know, the market's just going to go down. We don't foresee that. I mean, we study kind of all the different macroeconomics of it, and I don't think it's going to come crashing down or even come to like a screeching halt. I mean, there can be a slowdown, but, you know, if you're waiting for like a big correction.
But instead of 15 buyers, then we'll just have maybe 5 buyers all competing for the same house. That's not a bad deal.
So I guess I don't, you know, even if you bought right now a property, I don't think it's going to be worth less a year from now. So it wouldn't be a terrible time to buy. I just think you want to be careful. You have to be more careful if you're going to buy something on the retail market and you're like bidding against other people, right? Because then you could potentially be. So when
someone that we know that really kind of started Keller Williams in the Southeast, during the hot market in 05, 06, they made an offer on an Indian Hills property. Oh, no, it wasn't Indian Hills. It was Jackson's Creek in East Cobb. Super awesome, like right on the lake. And someone offered him $10,000 to walk away from the contract. And he was like, done. Like anytime somebody offers you money, you take it and go. Like if people are selling, you're buying. People are buying, you're selling. So
yeah, and to your comment, the rate, I mean, really that there's such a good deal in the rate right now to be able to lock in, anything below 4 at 4 as an investor for 30 years. You're going to have that rate for a long time. There's definitely and it makes the numbers work.
If the rate
with the higher price point, the rents, that those numbers work easier with the lower rate and the slightly higher rent. You're paying obviously a higher price, but it can still work.
Yeah, you just paid more per month for the same property if the rate goes up.
I think it goes back. I think it goes back, Kanani, to the figuring out what it is that you want to buy. So figuring out that, where do I want to be? What do I want to own? Do I want to have a single family house? Just creating that like ideal what you want. And then I promise you, once you do that, then all of a sudden you start to see stuff. Because then you're just zoned in and you learn that area and that product, and then you'll know when there is a deal. And sometimes they happen even in this market. So you just have to define what it is that you're looking for, and then just focus on that, and it can show up.
I remember through the holidays, everybody's busy during the holidays, and we were, and then boom, after the new year, we saw the most incredible deals closed in the holidays. We were like, where were we? We were out shopping, or actually we weren't shopping. I think this is 19. So when, do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. When everyone's busy, be buying, So.
Yeah. Cool. All right, y'all.
Well, we're past time, but we will, oh no, we're not. We're right on 8 o'clock. That was fast. Please share your info in the chat so that we can connect. There's more and more properties coming on the market than, there's just so many opportunities for investing right now. A lot of families with kids don't want one person walking through their house. They just want to sell it, and they just want to be done. So there's a lot of verbal offers. We like to say, hey, we're your buyer. We're your buyer. Whether we are or our buyer literally is our buyer. There's so many people looking for properties and plenty more sellers that don't really want to even sell. And yet if you do, of course, you'll have a lineup of people. I think something on the market that we had, I don't know, I thought it was 23 offers, and it turned into 30 offers on a property. It was nuts. I think that property was in Ackworth.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all for joining us. We appreciate it. If we can help you with anything at all at the beginning of the chat, or you can download the whole chat.
Yeah, do y'all know how to do that? You go down
that little file button at the bottom right of the chat, and you can download the whole thing. But our emails are at the very beginning. Hit us up if we can help you with anything, or you just want to chat offline, take a deeper dive on something. We'd love to help you. And we will hopefully see y'all next month.
Next month on
we're
Tuesday.
always the second Tuesday of the month, so we'll see y'all in August. Holy cow! All right, bye. Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.
Bye. Good to see you guys. Thank you for participating.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Be good.
Bye.
Thanks.